Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are literally wrapping ourselves in the warm, cozy blanket of Allen Levy's word-of-mouth sensation, Theo of Golden. You know, what started out as a self-published novel written entirely in longhand in this remote cabin in Georgia, by the way, has just blossomed into this widely beloved story. We're going to give you a warm, engaging, and absolutely spoiler-free overview of the book's premise and, honestly, more importantly, the really profound life lessons it offers. So let's jump right into what makes this story so incredibly special.
So picture this. What would you do if a total stranger bought a portrait of you just to give it right back? I mean, we live in such a highly transactional world that if you got a letter in the mail offering you free art of yourself, you'd probably assume it was some kind of scam, right? But by tossing this gentle little mystery at us right from the start, the story immediately invites us to question our own defensive walls.
To really grasp the magic of this whole thing, we gotta set the scene. Welcome to Golden, Georgia. It's this place of sun-bathed pavement, feather-soft shadows, and a wonderfully unhurried pace. It's packed with these rich, idyllic southern details, but listen, it is not some sanitized fairy tale. The town has real, gritty struggles, economic hardships, homelessness, past traumas. But the actual heart of this community, it beats right around the local promenade and a spot called the Chalice coffee shop, where folks from all walks of life just kind of intersect.
And stepping right into this slow-moving town is our main guy, 86. That is the age of Theo. He's an 86-year-old Portuguese widower who rolls into Golden just before Easter in a chauffeur-driven Lincoln town car. He is deeply observant, he loves the quiet flow of rivers, and he speaks with this amazing old-world politeness. The thing is, nobody in Golden has a clue where he came from, what his background is, or why he decided to settle in their little city out of nowhere. He is an absolute enigma, but one with an incredibly calming presence.
So Theo has this very quiet, very deliberate mission. He wanders into the Chalice coffee shop one day and discovers a gallery of 92 pencil-on-white paper portraits drawn by a struggling local artist. And Theo's response to this? Well, step 1, discover the art. Step 2, purchase every single one of those 92 portraits outright. Just buys the whole lot. And step 3, set out to quietly return them to their rightful owners, the actual everyday people depicted in the sketches.
Now, obviously coordinating meetups with 92 strangers without totally creeping them out requires some serious tact. So Theo writes these formal, incredibly polite letters to the subjects. In one of them he just says, "I am a harmless old man, a widower, a father, a toothless lion with only innocent intentions." It's brilliant. He uses this self-deprecating humor and just extreme transparency to ease their suspicions. He's essentially nudging them to take this tiny leap of faith to meet a stranger at a local fountain.
And here is where the magic really happens, during what we could call the gentle exchange. Theo gives the portrait away completely freely. He asks for absolutely nothing in return, except their story. And when they start to speak, he just listens, deeply, intently. By doing this, he takes what should be a simple material transaction and transforms it into an intimate hour of mutual vulnerability. He makes every single person feel like they are literally the only person in the world that matters in that moment.
All right, let's move on to Lesson 1, the power of slowing down and being seen.
This is where the story shifts and becomes a deeply reflective mirror for us as modern readers. In the book, there's a well-meaning townsperson named Mrs. Gidley, and she suggests Theo should just hand out all the portraits at a big public event. That right there represents modern technocratic optimization. You know, efficiency, scale, getting things done as quickly as possible. But Theo, he completely rejects that in favor of relational attentiveness. He wants deliberate, analog, one-on-one connection. In fact, you'll notice there are virtually no cell phones or social media distractions anywhere in this book. Levi's really showing us that true generosity and human connection, you simply cannot mass-produce it.
Theo's whole approach is rooted in this simple, beautiful philosophy. God gave us faces so we can see each other better. The author is really championing the act of actively looking at people, not looking past them or glancing down at our screens while they're talking, but truly seeing them and validating their individual worth. Theo's attentiveness feels radical simply because it is so incredibly rare these days.
Which brings us right to Lesson 2, the existence of sorrow and wonder. So while this book is almost universally described as cozy and gentle, it absolutely refuses to rely on toxic positivity. It gracefully holds space for the heavy, messy realities of human grief, showing us that authentic joy actually relies on the acknowledgement of shared sorrow. Theo is incredibly empathetic, sure, but as we learn, that empathy was forged in the fires of massive personal tragedy. Decades earlier, while living in France, Theo lost his wife and his 10-year-old daughter Tita in a devastating car accident. His ability to connect with the sadness of others doesn't come from having a perfect life. It comes from knowing exactly what scraping the bottom of the emotional barrel feels like.
It really all boils down to this fantastic line: sadness can make us bitter or wise. We get to choose. With this lyrical prose, we are reminded of our ultimate human agency. When life inevitably hurts us, because it will, we are faced with a choice about how that pain is going to shape our future. Theo made a conscious choice to let his sadness make him wise, and then he used that wisdom to tend to the wounds of others.
So what does that wisdom actually look like in practice? It looks like healing connection. For example, Theo spends hours just sitting with Tony, this cynical bookstore owner who carries some incredibly heavy trauma from his combat days in Vietnam. And later, when Ellen, a severely marginalized, unhoused woman, disrupts a church service by literally riding her bicycle down the aisle, Theo doesn't try to usher her out. No, he warmly welcomes her. He doesn't offer cheap platitudes. He doesn't try to fix these people. He simply offers a listening ear and his steady, non-judgmental presence.
Because Theo understands a profound truth. Living with sadness, accepting it, is easier than trying to pretend it isn't there. By stubbornly refusing to look away from the pain of his neighbors, Theo actually creates a safe space. Acknowledging those shared struggles is exactly what allows genuine healing, a sense of wonder, and authentic community to finally take root in the town of Golden. And that leads us into our final thematic lesson for today: a legacy of kindness. Fun fact here: Allen Levi has actually mentioned in interviews that Theo's deep love for people and his unhurried lifestyle was largely modeled after his own late brother. It really shows us what a life well lived actually looks like in practice. As the book notes, the best portion of a good person's life is the little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and love. In a society completely obsessed with going viral or making these grand public gestures, Theo proves that a life composed of steady, quiet, anonymous goodness is entirely enough to fundamentally change the world around us. If I had to pick one word to describe the emotional resonance of this book, it's poignant. You know, when something is so beautiful, it's just a little bit sad. Theo of Golden has resonated with hundreds of thousands of readers because it serves as this peaceful respite. It reminds us that even when the world is chaotic, violent, or completely indifferent, the simple, sincere good that we do for one another still profoundly, absolutely matters. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. What small, nameless act of kindness will you choose today? I highly challenge you to take Theo's gentle wisdom, step away from the screen for a bit, and carry that unhurried attentiveness out into your own neighborhood and community. Thanks so much for joining me today. Keep learning, keep connecting, and I will see you next time.